You've
Yeah.
got so much evidence, and I call it proof.
That's what I call it.
It's proof. You've
Yeah.
got so much evidence, and I call it proof.
That's what I call it.
It's proof. You've
Yeah.
got so much evidence, and I call it proof.
That's what I call it.
It's proof.
All right. So, real quick, I'm going to take a look at a shot here. This is one of the shots that Melanie got last week. We're going to take a look at this real quick. This is the shot where the creature is actually staring straight on at Melanie. So let's go over that now. So what we have is, this is the area we're looking at right here. And if you look, what you're going to see here is what appears to be some type of a caveman or a monster. This is what a Sasquatch looks like, a big one too. This one is over 8 feet. It's between 8 and 10 feet, closer to 10, I'd say. The 8-foot line in these bushes is somewhere right around here. So, but anyway, to help you to identify what's going on here, the whole face, this area here encompasses the whole face. The whole head would come up because they have this huge apex skull when they get this big, right? Not all of them, but this particular variety in the genetics, I'll put it that way. So what are we looking at? What we've got is we've got the bottom of the nose here. So this big round bulge right here, this is the nose. And then these are the eyes. This is the eye area here. So you've got that rectangular angled eye, and then you can see the bulging brow ridge right there. And you've got the brow ridge on this side. So this guy walked up. This is one of those times where it's too far and they blend far too well to actually see with the naked eye. This is 80, 85 yards. And this is Melanie shooting. And she hears the noise disruption in the tree line. From experience, and in many occasions, she raises the iPad and she begins to record in the area, looking at the iPad screen where she hears the disturbance. And what does she pick up? Does this resemble a squirrel, this area here? No, it doesn't resemble a squirrel. Does this face resemble a normal man in these dimensions? Absolutely not. You know what I mean? This looks like some kind of a relic hominoid. It looks like something they've been digging out of the ground. This looks like one of those skulls, right? The skull type, the hominoid, relic hominoid, wild relic hominoid. What is that? Australopithecus, Homo heidelbergensis, Neanderthal. This looks like one of those creatures. This looks exactly like what eyewitnesses have been describing. Now, I ask you, what are the odds that someone is filming in a tree line in an area that has a history of Sasquatch sightings? They hear noise in that tree line. They raise the camera and they film this. What are the odds of that not being what it is? I say it's 100% that that's a Sasquatch. But then I've been there and experienced it and caught them on film myself. People who weren't there, people who have a tendency to rely on belief as opposed to data. What does the data tell us in this shot? The visual data tells us that the symmetry of what eyewitnesses describe, including myself, a Sasquatch, the symmetry of the head of a Sasquatch is present in this photo. We'll leave it at that. So what are we looking at now? What we're looking at now is a sample of some Sasquatch hair. That's what we're looking at. You can see you've got a really good cross section of coloration in these hairs. But if you really look at it, what you see in here is like a cross section of the same colorations you would see in a forest, and more importantly, in a Florida forest, right? You got some dark colors, but I want to draw your attention to this one particular hair right here. This particular hair is something else. Hey, look who's here. Let's get him in here. There you go. What's up, Kerry? And I was just going over this hair right here, man.
How's my audio today? Better? Can you hear me?
Still no audio.
Oh,
Yep, I got you. You there? Oh, I think he left. Huh. Well, I think we'll continue with our little go over here. So anyway, what we got is we've got this clear hair right here. You see this, baby? That's not supposed to happen. You see that? It appears to be absent medulla or core. And then, with this particular cross section, like I said, it really does resemble the colors in a forest. If you look at all the individual hairs, this is one sample that came off that fence. And this particular hair right here, this black one in the back here, looks exactly like the hair samples we pull from Central Florida. So, you know, is it the same species? I think it is. But at the same time, we have to have official testing, and for that to happen, somebody's going to have to grow a sack. You know what I mean? They're going to have to be.
Now?
I can hear you perfect.
all right. Is my
Audio
audio better?
It sounds great.
Okay. I think I can hear it coming through your speakers too.
Oh boy, let me turn it
No
down.
big deal.
How's that?
Yep. That's it. We're good.
Okay, that's a little better. So, what about my volume? I'm good.
Yeah. You sound good.
Awesome. Well, look at this cross section. This is one sample. Look at this, man. What do you think about that?
And that's all one sample, right?
Yeah.
That's from the fence.
That's one particular spot where we pulled a clump. So that's the whole clump. And look at that. Look at that clear one. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about possibilities, hair like this, minus Sasquatch, you got horse. And I mean, horses do leave hair on fences, but this is not horsehair. It's not even close.
It's not even close to horsehair, no.
Yeah, no, horsehair is usually uniform. You can, if you put a horsehair under a microscope, as I looked at some, you can definitely see the core or medullum or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, man.
And you don't see any of that here. This is strange, man.
No, man, it's like nothing I've been able to find, and I've literally gone through the FBI's database, forensic hair analysis database. It took me probably 6 months to finally come to the conclusion that this is what we think it is. You know what I mean? I mean, when you run out of literally every creature that's native to Florida and you start looking at other states, I can't, and this is the funny part, I can't find anything that's even close to this hair.
Yeah, this is the only other thing I've seen close to this is the one MK did.
Well, but yeah, but that's a
and that was
purported
Bigfoot hair
Sasquatch.
also.
That's
That
right.
was, yeah.
Now I
Yeah.
got a student of mine from my Patreon page, a guy by the name of Tim, who's under my direction heading into these areas up in the Central Florida area, not the same areas that I'm at, but he's listening to what I say about these campgrounds. And this guy's pulling hair samples that look exactly like this. Exactly like this, man. And tracks and whatnot. But he's taking some heat on over that kind of stuff. And the bottom line is it doesn't compare to anything, man. You know what I mean? People think, oh, well, that's got to be plant or this and that. And have you burned it? And yeah, let me just burn what's probably the most rare hair sample on Earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but it's a trip, man. I mean, I've had a few people examine this, and the people who I've talked to don't know what this is from, and I think that's a huge tell in and of itself.
Yeah, this is not any kind of plant. Obviously, plants are not clear either. Not that I've ever seen. The only things you see that are clear are usually all alive in the ocean.
Yeah, that's true.
not on land. But, you know, it makes sense. You find these things around these campgrounds. I mean, obviously, these guys use trees. They use trees a lot. They're up next to these trees, and trees have bark, and bark can pull the hair off of you, you know? Um, is he finding a lot of the follicle, like endosperm and all that?
I've got follicles. Yep, I got follicles. You want to see one?
No, I've seen some of yours already, but
Oh, oh,
we can show the crowd.
so this is what it looks like, right?
Yeah,
It's kind of strange, man, but that's definitely a follicle. That's the end. You can see right in here where, and actually, this isn't the other side of this is actually a different one. There's two follicles in the first sample I examined, but you can see where the root was in here. This is subsurface, right? So this is below the skin. But if you look, and this is actually a better angle, and you can see. Oh
yeah.
god, I left a play thing on the screen there. Oops, boy, come on, guys. Okay, there we go. So if you look up in here, this is oil. These are oil deposits. See this here? And from what I've seen and what I looked at, this is some of the oiliest hair I've ever found and seen. Really, I examined a couple of cuts off of my own, a couple of cuts off Melanie. Took hair off a brush from the bathroom, and there's like no oil on it. This stuff with the tapered tip and the deposits. I mean, if I had the full shot, I can't find it right now, but the full shot of this, it's just coated and it's just buggered up in this oil. And
Well, you
there's
know
even
what this
some
oil is going to do for them, right? It's going to
oh
keep them dry.
that too, yeah. It'll sheet off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's fascinating, man. You know, and going through all this stuff, right? There's a certain amount, especially in the beginning, of doubt. Even though you got something in the bushes, even though you see them and you know they exist, when you have situations repeatedly happening where you don't see the individual because they're so fast, or maybe you look where you hear the noise, but he could have jumped, and the noise you heard was him leaving the area that you're now looking at, and he's 20 feet to the right. Before we knew all these things, it was we got to find physical evidence, and then when you actually go into a spot and you walk up on stuff like this and you're seeing these hairs tangled up in these trees and snagged on stuff all around you, it's almost like I almost threw up, because it's solidifying, like literally where we were, and we pulled that hair where that follicle was. I had literally caught an individual under that tree and had an argument with someone about whether it was pareidolia or not. Well, I'm under that same tree now, pulling this individual's hair. You know what I mean? And this is
Well,
not just like the same area. I'm talking about the exact same tree that I had caught this individual on film, and it looks like a giant monkey with a human nose, but it's 8.5, 9 feet tall. My stomach was sinking. You get that sinking feeling because it's so real. Here it is, man. This is what it is. This is actual reality.
yeah, it's probably 70 to 80% freaked out, I would say, the whole time.
It's,
I think that's realistic.
yeah,
Just
yeah, and
freaked out.
it's
Just I
broad
mean,
daylight stuff.
and that's what's going to make you miss stuff. You're going to miss shit being freaked out.
That's right. That's right. You are, man. But then, the wonder, the amazement. And then it was like, you know what? I really honestly, man, after what, 2.5 years of looking, to have it in your hands in the bag. And you're like, we did this shit. You know what I mean? Like we literally tracked them. Like we went on satellite, looked, found a spot we thought was smart based on theory, and tracked an individual because we found tracks based on a theory about it's too hot down here, they need shade. And we go in this area, and the next thing you know, we're finding tracks, then we're hearing stuff. We have the nighttime experiences. The next day, here we are pulling hair. I mean, there's a sense of accomplishment that I felt when we got that first sample that just it blew my mind. I had a lot of gratitude for our members too, because to be honest with you, I might not have looked as far back as we ended up going if it wasn't for Chad and Deborah, because I had a, it was like, I was directing the expedition, but I had some rogue elements going on
Right.
in the membership. And so they were kind of not sticking to the plan. And my plan was I was trying to camera trap them with ultimate clarity in the tenting area, because they had come in the middle of the night, and I thought, okay, well, all we have to do is duplicate the experiment, and hopefully they'll do what they do, right? And that was my goal. But in the interim of the daytime had to pass and go into the night for us to execute all that. In that interim, they all wandered out into the back, which is where I was trying to tell everybody, stay out of there. We don't want to push them back. We want to draw them in, because I wanted them to come in again. That night, they came up. They were all over Deborah's tent. She had her Glock out, loaded, ready to start firing. This thing was right outside her tent. Walked over across the gravel. Plainly, you could hear this thing walking. Jack was telling. Deb and Jack both heard it. He was standing outside over top of Jack's tent, going, like this. And Jack's in there just like, at first he said, I thought it was you punking me, and then all of a sudden I hear you and Melanie both like in our tent snoring away, But so my goal was to duplicate that night, because I have success with that. If I duplicate my experiment, I tend to get the same results. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about, right? To get that data. But it didn't go that way. And as a direct result of, like I said, rogue elements, we ended up going 1,000 yards out into the forest behind the campsite. And that's where we actually found the hares. It worked out the way it did, and I was real grateful, man, because I spent a lot of time crawling around with a magnifying glass, trying to, I was in there. It wasn't there that I was doing it. I was in my primary. And, it's just one of those areas that you got to get around the brush that snags. And there's certain stuff, little oak saplings has a lot of craggle. I call it craggle. Anytime I see that craggle, I'm paying real close attention to what's in that craggle, because that's where we found the hares, in the overhead 6 to 9 foot range in Central Florida, So hats
They're
off to
good
my
ways.
members,
And you talk about, going back to wonder and amazement and gratitude, and I think a lot of that stuff is reserved for after, because I think when you're there, when you're in the moment, and you're finding these things, you're finding all this evidence, hair and tracks, and they're around, you can hear them, you can smell them. That's sacrifice. You're setting aside a lot of primal feelings, primal instincts, just to be there and do it when you're in it, when they're there, because there's a fear. There's no other way to say it. It's you're making a hell of a sacrifice. Anybody that's going in there doing that, and I understand the wonder and the amazement and all that, but in that moment, man, it's that sacrifice. You're setting aside everything that's telling you to run, which would or get the hell out of there, which most people do. I mean, even people that go look for this creature, man, and I think they go in with this childlike sense of wonder and just wanting to see, but not something's telling them, there's probably not real, but I'm gonna go check it out, and then they experience it, and it's like, okay, it's time to go. You know, the
Yeah.
people that are going to look for these things find what they're looking for and leave. So I mean, that's there, and it's in all of us, and it's in me. I can tell you that.
No, it's real.
I can anticipate it even. But yeah, to me, that's the first thing you have to say about any of this is sacrifice. What have you given up? But you and Melanie both. My God.
Oh yeah, man. Mel and I have that conversation like probably once a month, man. And we were like,
Where
just
could
shut it down. It's like, oh, I'm over it. You know what I mean? But when we really, what it comes down to is we're not over the research or the work side of it. It's the presentation side of it that gets old, because there's no shortage of new people, and there's no shortage of limited perspectives, and no shortage of people willing to state those limited perspectives without ever having even talked to you, that kind of stuff. But in looking at it, it's the field stuff you're talking about is not. I have more problems. Once I'm there, I'm okay. It's getting me there. That's the problem. Like, I mean, I know what I've seen. I know what I've experienced. I mean, it's unequivocal. across the board. You know what I mean? And so when I start charging my cameras, when I start getting, I got to go through this process, man, every time. And it's one of those things where I'll try to find a reason not to. You know what I mean? And Melanie's like, no, no, no. If it wasn't for her, a lot of this shit wouldn't have got done because I have too much common sense. Really, what it boils down to is I know what I saw. I know what's in there. I've seen it close up. I've seen it far away. I've seen it a dozen times or more. And I'm not about playing with it. But I do really believe, and there's something in me that does need to get this done. And I will not be derailed, you know?
You never know when that guy's just gonna step out, man.
That's the thing, right? I
Yeah,
keep telling myself that.
'cause they'll
This is
do
the
it.
day.
They will do it.
This is the day.
Took them 7 years to do it to me, and, I really think they thought that I knew they were there just from the interactions we had, and I really think that's the only reason they did what they did that day, and I say "they" because it was more than just him there, the one that I saw. There's no doubt.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, you and I talked about your experiences there prior to that, and I think there are a lot of correlations with what you described and things that I've experienced and things that many other people have experienced before they actually knew what was going on. So, I mean, it fits.
Well, it's what's weird is it's things that I had never experienced anywhere else and still wrote off, like a loud thump on the ground. Just a hard boom.
Coming
I
through your.
mean, what am I supposed to think that is? Am I
Yeah.
supposed to think that's Sasquatch? No, I mean, that's
Oh,
not even remotely on my radar,
yeah.
but I
Oh, it must
never
have been a
heard that
branch.
yeah, well,
Big
in any
branch
other
fell.
woods. Yeah, in any other woods I ever went through, but no, I mean, I would feel it sometimes, and the knocking that I would say, "Okay, somebody's beating on something, or they're hammering or building a roof." They did it for years, you know, constantly. 2 o'clock in the morning, they're building on it, but it would be 12, 13 knocks, and it'd quit, and then 10 minutes later, it'd be 5 or 6 more, and then it'd quit. I mean, why
Yeah.
wouldn't I connect that to something else than someone hammering on something, and it being close enough and just telling myself it's carrying through the woods, that's
Yeah.
we fool our and that was what angered me more than anything, I think, after the fact was because I didn't know anything, and I felt like I had risked my life all this time because I was too stupid to actually pay attention. I had my put my life in danger, of course, finding out later, they wanted to kill me, they would have killed me. If if he wanted to get me to snuck up on me and got me, man, he wouldn't have let me know he was coming. There's no way.
That dude
So,
was pulling your chain, homie.
yeah, for sure. He was letting me know
It's
this ain't
interesting
good.
to me too. It's interesting to me in the scripts that you put it forth in your encounter stuff. Uh, it was like to me he was like saying it's like he knew there's nothing you could do at this distance. You can
Yeah.
shoot, you can do whatever you want.
Oh,
I
well, he was
got
just
you.
standing in a gap, I could
Like
see
I
him
got you.
clearly, but one step one way or the other, I'd never seen him anymore, All he had to do, if I'd have raised my gun, he'd have been gone. I
Yeah,
believe
yeah, yeah.
that. But I mean, he's standing in this gap by these two trees, 80 feet away. I mean, if I'd had my rifle, I could have killed him, but if I'd have raised it, I think he would have jetted out. I think he'd have been
It's
gone.
possible. He might have circled around behind you.
Well, I think
That's
that's
always
why he
my.
kept looking at me. I think that's exactly why he kept looking at me to see if I was pointing my gun at him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He wasn't gonna
And
take
I
his
when I
eyes
waved at him, I wonder what he thought about that shit, you know?
off. Yeah, right.
So, yeah, I mean, it's easy to laugh about now, but I mean, in that moment, it's literally the most terrifying thing that anybody could ever go through, I think, you're looking at the boogeyman. That's essentially what that is.
Yeah.
It's a
No, it
powerful,
is, man. It's
something that's not supposed to exist is standing right there in front of you, and
how about the contrast between the skin and the teeth and the eyes? Like I got one of the ones I saw, man. I've seen a couple of them that look like dead people, the color of like a dead person. Um, but then there's the black one, and the black one had a contrast in his mouth that stood out so. It was so stark the contrast of the mouth and the teeth.
white. Very white
Oh
is what
my
I look
God.
at.
It was like, it was like strange almost. You know what I mean? It was
And people say,
alive.
"Well, there's no dentists out there in the woods." Doesn't matter. I mean, look at young gorillas. They have white teeth. The older they are, the more jacked up they get. I mean, because I went and looked at pictures. That's why I think this was a young guy.
Yeah.
Is he,
I think vegetation will clean your teeth nicely. You know what I mean?
yeah, depends on what you're chewing on, right? What you're eating.
Yeah, and I don't know, I just know that that's what I saw, So, but there's going to be that, like what you just said, about the teeth thing. I get that about tracks. I get people who talk about how well the toes aren't splayed, and I'm like, well, he's not climbing up a hill trying to grip with them. You know what I mean? Like they
Right.
think that if the toes aren't this far apart, that somehow so that's a human. He's been wearing shoes. Well, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
The toes will do what the foot requires in different situations. And
Yeah. The
in most
substrate.
situations,
Substrate.
yeah, most situations, a foot is not as solid with its toes spread. So, like going through mud, the toes, you can see this. I've tracked them on many occasions, hundreds of tracks from different individuals walking together, and their toes are never splayed until they're coming up like up out of a hill or something, and maybe something slips, and then you can see some toe splay where individually the toes are trying to grip to get it up the hill. But yeah, different looks and all that stuff. That's the old absolutes. That's all nonsense, man. I don't subscribe to that. We even see the appearance of arches, and I mean that just equates to, is it prompts questions in my mind about the DNA. How much of this, particular group that we're studying, how much DNA is that modern human DNA Ketchum talks about? Is that an accurate representation to begin with? Why is it that here's a good one for you? One of them appears to have an arch. I track him another 100 yards. He hits a solid substrate, and the track goes flat.
Yeah, I think you could probably. I think if you took the actual creature from every track ever found, you could disseminate an arch at some point throughout, tracking them.
Yeah,
That's just how I think they are. I don't think they're all the same. But the immutable characteristics, the bone structure, hairy, ugly, as far as we're concerned, large for the most part, as far as we know. People talk about seeing small ones. I saw a 4-footer. It's a juvenile. Well, we don't really know that. It could be full grown and just be a 4-foot guy. That's
true
how I
too.
see this stuff. It's
Yeah, there's a
it's
lot
just
of that
so you
stuff, man.
label them like that.
A lot of that stuff going on out there with that. How about this? Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this and talk about why this isn't a normal human track. I know. I know that you will absolutely remember this particular instance because you and I walked up on it.
That's right. We
I'm gonna
sure
tell you.
did.
I'm here to tell you right now. Those toes are up on each other, but that is not a human track.
Point the track out with your cursor there.
Okay,
Smart.
so what we got is we got the front part here, right? This is going to be your big toe area. Then we got toe one, toe two, toe three, and toe four. The
Mm,
track itself is right in here. Now, if you look at it, what we've got in this track, and there's some indents and stuff, and I think that some of this, like this area here, was probably already there. But what we're seeing is a real solid heel impression and very little continuation where the rest of that part of the foot hit. And then we see a real strong ball implant right here. So we're looking at the pad of the foot right in this area and then the other side of the ball here. We've got toes, all five, the ball of the foot, and then we've got a gap and a real strong heel imprint. This individual I have tracked on multiple occasions, and in different substrates over the course of the last 6 years, and this foot has not changed. It appears to be emaciated. It
that's
hasn't
about
gotten
a 10 inch. That was about a 10-inch track, wasn't it? 10, 11
yeah,
inches.
10, 11 inches, somewhere like that.
Not extremely huge.
No. Okay, here's his right foot right here. Okay, this is a great track. But this right foot is the same individual, same exact individual. And I have the rights and the lefts from this guy. But this is the right. The one you and I found was the left. Here's the right.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that real strong pad right there. And on
Square.
this one, because the substrate was a little bit softer, you can see the edge of the foot.
Right.
You know what I mean? So not jumping to conclusions, right, about this individual, right? Thankfully, we found this series of tracks, and there was probably 150 to 200 from him alone. Uh, that particular series of tracks, when I found the one with you and you were walking with me, and I was like, "Hey, man," and you turned around and I looked down and you were like, "Whoa, look at that!" And you know, I don't know how much you were weighing at the time, but I was 240.
Yeah, I was
And
about 235.
I
I'm at
didn't even leave an indent.
I gained a little weight since then.
Well, I mean, you
Uh,
remember we were
yeah, no,
both
we
jumping.
didn't leave an impression at all.
We were jumping up and down, and we weren't even leaving a mark. And here's this
Yeah.
guy with an 11. He had a smaller foot than I did, a way smaller foot than you did. And granted, now what does that mean? Does that mean it was made right then and right there, or was it raining the day he made it? There's always that.
That's a good point,
Yeah,
but, it also speaks to, muscle and bone density, and
that's where I'm going with it. Yeah.
the way
But
these
isn't that
things are
something? Now,
built.
here's the thing, right? The first one that I just showed you, the mud one, that's 2015. You and I found that in 2017. 2017. So 2 years later,
And
the
he's not
same
getting any
individual.
bigger.
It wasn't any bigger, and he's a part of that four individual group, the two females and the two males, based on how about I'll put it this way: the two robust sets of tracks and the two more feminine uh, sets of tracks. So we always say two females and two males, and they have a toddler. But that guy's still out there. You were the second person. I was the first person with my wife. Then me and you found his tracks, and then me and Scott found his tracks. And I was laughing because I said, "This dude's been busted, like big
Yeah,
time. He's been busted by multiple people
over several years, and
over
to
the
me,
course of several
if
years."
you look at that and the track not changing, now is he full grown, or does it speak to a lack of nutrition and therefore maybe stunted growth, or does it speak to how long it takes these creatures to get big? Do they just not grow that fast? You know,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
says something about lifespan too, I believe.
yeah.
If
It
that's
does.
it.
It say something about lifespan, right? You know what I mean? And you know he's hanging out with somebody who has his dad's tracks. You know, we Mel and I think that this group is family with the one that I saw in 2013. We're going back now. What is this? 2020? Wow, it's been a long time since I seen him, man. You know,
7 years.
I'm thinking about that. It's like, whoa, man. But anyway, I want to show you this one too while we're here, just real quick, and then we'll get on with the show. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm snowed
This
in,
is
man.
this is their infant. This is their toddler.
That's crazy. That's
This right
just
here,
crazy.
that's my hand, and this track is approximately 3.5 inches long, and this is and you can see it. Just looks like a baby's foot. You know how they get that
It looks like
chubby
baby
look.
Bigfoot's foot.
It looks like a baby Bigfoot's foot, man, with that triangle, that real pointy heel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's funny because really, look at the similarities in this, man. Look at the similarities. Let me see. What is it? Chris's track. It's my brother's track. This is something else, man. That little guy's track looks like a miniature.
Yeah. I think his second toe didn't make an impression. It looks like it got held up.
You see how this thing? It looks like it's
Yeah.
like got a. This is really the front of it right here, but it's got that real narrow heel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I look at that. I look at that little guy's track, and I'm like, man. I mean, that's a trip. You can just see how they just are growing right into that.
So what did he say to you when he found that?
Oh, he was white as a sheet. Yeah. No, we were alone, and we didn't know.
Oh, I know right where that was.
Oh, yeah. And here's the thing, man. It was the height of summer, so the growth was impending. It was like, claustrophobic. It's like right on
Mhm.
you. Everywhere you went, there was like bush like right next to you, and you couldn't see into it. And there was a stench. And I kept thinking, I don't know what that is, but it doesn't smell like a pig. And Chris kept going, well, it's got to be a pig. What else could it be? because that's my brother, right? And so we're leapfrogging down this canal. So I go down with him, and we're casting. And then when you eventually you run out of bank to fan cast, you know what I mean? We're making those casts down the bank, trying to catch a largemouth. So I take off. He's like, "Where you going?" I'm trying to get down in front of him, get the new water, right? So I run down, and then he comes running. "I'm going past you." So he runs past me 40 yards. We're doing that for about a half a mile. All of a sudden, I go from mine to leapfrog past him, and I'm just about passing him. I look down, and he's like white as a sheet. He's like, "Get down here, get down here." And I'm like, "What's going on, man?" He's like, "Get down here, man." And I went down there, and he was standing over, and he goes, "Is that what I think it is?" And I go, "Holy." I was like, "Oh my God." I started looking around because it was wet. There was wet ground in the bottom of that, and the moss was just stripped out, like it stuck to the bottom of his foot. He was so heavy or something. You know what I mean? We were both like looking around, like, that thing's still here, dude. This is because it was still early. It was about 8 something. Looked like it was probably from dawn, the track, and there were still, the ground was still wet from the morning. You know that you're a hunter. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's just all over everything until about 9:30,
Yep.
10 o'clock. It finally cooks off. But it was just all over. It was obvious that he came out of that water. And at that point, I had limited understanding. But my brother was like, he was just astonished. He was like, I can't believe this, man. He threw his cigarettes down there for scale. But it was a trip, man.
That was a 17, 18-inch track.
18 all day.
18.
Yeah, 17 and a half, 18. I'll put it down. I say now because now I understand that a lot of times where you think the end of that track is, the toes are in front of it. It's
Right.
the ball, because their ball is so pronounced. It'll actually literally their toes will be off the ground, or at least not as much pressure, and it's the ball that makes the indent. And I found that in a swamp track.
Well, it's that up and down step that would do that. If it was this way, you'd see the toes every time. But if you think
Yeah.
about a foot just coming, and look at Patty, that's what she does. I'm trying to compare all of them to Patty, but that's the best one we've got.
It's pretty good because we can see it.
Yeah, it's her foot bends, but it's still coming down flat, one in front of the other.
It is a trip, isn't it?
Quiet gate.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like we get examples of tracks and trackways all the time. And from what I know from tracking these guys, if it's got a stagger in it, if it isn't a situational kind of sign where they're negotiating a rise, or maybe they slipped a little bit or something. But if it's flat ground and those tracks aren't in line, you ain't staring at a Sasquatch track, far as I know. If there's one absolute in this, what I've seen is the groups that we study, they have that in line where their legs are swinging out and they're coming around. They have that.
No, it makes sense for your center of weight, ankle moved forward on the foot. It all. I mean, I learned all this stuff from the expert Meldrum, but it makes sense that
Yeah,
that's how they would walk. It's a much better way to walk.
yeah, that's the thing,
Conserves,
right?
yeah, conserves the ankle, conserves the foot.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the late Lloyd Pye said. He said, "Whoever built us didn't build us very good.
That's
Sasquatch
right.
is built right." You know,
Exactly what he said.
that's what he said, dude. You know, so but anyway, so I understand that we're going to do the show now. Is that right?
You want me to do it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the next installment of Mark and Kerry A to Z. I'm Kerry Arnold.
And I'm Mark Zasky.
We got some good stuff for you tonight. I've got a few videos, Mark. I think that we can have a pretty good show with. I just gotta figure out how to get them up here. I think I can do it.
Okay. What
But
do you got? You got anything good?
well, yeah. The ones I have are pretty good. Now, this was my criteria. Stuff that wasn't debunked, that could possibly be something real, but still strange stuff. And so what I did was I found they're calling it dog man, but it's not really. I don't know. It doesn't look much like any kind of dog man I've ever seen. Um, it's kind of strange. and the others are Bigfoot thermals. Now these are the Bigfoot thermals that have been deemed to be actual
Legit.
Bigfoot. So let me just get in here, find this bad boy. And here it is. Okay.
So first I'll play the original video.
No.
Enhancements.
You see the drop down?
Do I?
Yeah.
I don't see anything. I got this. Let me hit. Okay, I don't want to share that screen. If I go to this one, I got this window here, but I don't have my little screen share thing from StreamYard.
You don't see it?
Let's see. I see the screen share up down here, but it's sharing this screen right here.
Okay, well so when you click stop screen and then hit share screen again, and you should get a drop down or a thing that pops up and it says blue share screen. When you click that, when you click the second one, right, you're gonna click share screen.
All right, I click share screen.
And then you get the blue box there, right?
It says share your screen, your entire screen, apply windows. But I mean, it's this.
No. Just click the blue button and another drop down is going to come.
I don't see a blue button.
What? You don't have blue on yours? What is going on? Oh, okay. I see. Click the one that says share screen. It's blue. You see it?
Mine's not blue.
What is it?
It's just white.
Okay, so click share screen.
I did.
And you should get a drop down menu. Open that drop down menu and it'll ask you what you want. What you want to share.
I got it. I gotta hit Chrome tab.
Ah, there you go. Okay.
Can you see it? Can you see the screen?
I can see it now.
All right. So I'm just gonna. This is the Bigfoot Tony breakdown of it, but I muted it so we don't have to listen to him. So, but just watch this thing. It's Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Yeah, it's gonna be coming. Let's skip forward a little bit where it's actually playing.
Can you full screen it? There you go. Oh yeah.
I'm gonna skip forward just a hair so we actually start seeing this thing moving. Okay, here we go. He's right here. Ear, and watch those ears move. See that head turn? Watch those ears move now.
Man, that is weird looking.
Those ears move closer together. This is an eye right here.
They're moving the whole time, the ears.
Nose, kind of a flat nose, but I mean, how strange is this? Look, teeth, nose, and this eye. Watch this eye blink. It just blinked right there, and this other eye up here, you see I'm blinking. So I mean, this is not a puppet, man. I don't know what this is. They classify this as dog man, and you see him scrubbing through, and I want to skip ahead just a little bit here. Oh, I see your cursor up there too. Very cool.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine.
No, that's not mine.
Oh, it's his.
Yeah, that's his.
Yeah, I'm stupid.
He's busy doing his breakdown, man.
Yeah, I want to get to.
He usually does a good job, man.
Yeah, no, he
What's
does.
that behind it? Do you see something behind that creature?
Where?
Wow, look at the hair on that thing.
I know.
I mean, the mouth. You can see the mouth move.
Yeah, no, that's teeth.
It's what it is. It's teacup poodle guy.
Whatever.
That's more like instead of dog
ears like that.
It's terrier man. It's terrier guy.
If it's a dog man, it's definitely a terrier.
You know what I'm saying?
A Yorkie.
Somebody took a Yorkie and crossed it with a guy, man. They're doing that shit.
look, I don't know what they did, but this video, it just ends, and people had something to say about that. But I mean, what would you do if I mean, wouldn't you? I would kind of run. I think if I saw something like this. The only problem that we really don't have here is scale. Because I mean, and watch this guy come down, and he's gonna do a little breakdown of the eyes blinking. That's nose, teeth, mouth, but the eyes, man, the eyes are not forward facing. They're on the side of the head. I want to get up here to the eye.
Yeah, show me these eyes. I got to see this because what I saw was something that looked more like it was on the front of the face.
No, I'll show you.
I was thinking they were in this region here. I guess you can't see mine.
You'll see the eye blink when he gets right down here in this area. All right, come on, Tony. Right here. See that eye blink right there?
Oh yeah.
Right there.
Okay. Yeah, that's a weird looking something there, buddy.
Yep. And that's what he's looking at is that eye blink. Look at that.
Yeah, that's demented, man.
Nostrils flaring at the same time. Yeah, I mean, Bigfoot Tony doesn't do a bad job breaking these things down. He didn't debunk this, I can tell you that much. But I mean, you can kind of, when you see where the eye is here, you can kind of get a better idea of what this thing actually looks like with because that doesn't look like a forward facing eye, that looks like some
It's strange.
yeah, showing that eye blink again, isolating it.
Yeah.
Too much movement, I think, for it to be some kind of mask. Or any kind of animatronic.
I think it's interesting. It's interesting. The leaves in the foreground. This looks like poison oak or something, man.
Yeah, it actually does look like oak leaves a little bit right here up close. That's the only problem is scale. We don't know how big it is.
Well, I mean, looking at the average oak leaf, dude, we're looking at something that's, an oak leaf is pretty much like around this size. So it's 3 to 4 inches wide by 4.5, 5 inches long. You got what looks to be a smaller tree running up there in the foreground. I don't think this thing's very big. That's just my opinion.
That's the other eye. It may not be that big. This doesn't look like a very, in relation to these leaves, this doesn't look like a big tree. And I don't know what country this is. I don't know what part of the world this is. I have no idea. What bothers me most are the ears, how long they are, and look how they move.
It's demented, man. It's living.
Yeah, whatever it is, I believe this is an actual creature. It's a bizarre whatever it is.
I honestly, man, I honestly believe that you nailed it when you said Yorkshire Terrier. I'm gonna go with Yorkshire Terrier. That's what I'm gonna do.
The ears, man.
I know, man. It looks like it's demented. It's demented.
And the way it moves and the way it's looking there, and watch those ears up there. I mean, that's not a Yorkie ear right there, dude.
It isn't actually very Yorkish. That is so strange, man.
I'm telling you. That's why I wanted. That's why I liked it. It's not anything that's been debunked. It looks real. It's strange looking. Look at that mouth open, those teeth that.
Now that we're back zoomed out, it looks a little bigger than I previously thought.
I think it's smaller than a person. Right, I don't know. Well,
yes, I think it's smaller than say me or you.
Yeah.
But God, that's demented. Demented. That's demented.
It is.
That's a good video. That's controversial right there, dude.
That's why it's on A to Z. Now, where can you go with that? I mean, you're literally, to me, I'm at a wall with it. It doesn't compare to me. We obviously compared it to a Yorkie, but then you look at some of the other features, the ears, the teeth, where the eyes are.
Well, I mean, last week I sent you pictures of what the ears look like, Maine Coon cat ears.
Right.
They've got the extra hair above the actual flesh that sticks off to the side a little bit. It's got that curve on it. But the rest of it doesn't look like a Maine Coon.
A lot of people had something to say about how abruptly the video ended. Well, what would you do? What would you do?
But that's typical. That's where skepticism gets these people.
That's
You
haters,
know what I
man.
mean?
Haters gonna hate.
That's like a byproduct of I wasn't there. You know what I mean? It's just gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? Like I got somebody, man, who's sharing tracks from um, from my Patreon page. One of my students from my in the field class. He's going and he's taking direction. He's finding tracks. He finds these juvenile tracks, 4 to 8 inches long. I don't know exactly. I think it was actually 4.5, something like that. And but they're immaculate tracks. I mean, they're in perfect mud. Not too soft, not too hard. You know, too soft, it'll collapse. Too hard, it doesn't take the detail. This is like perfect. It's like he stepped in plastisol that was like a gel base. It's perfect. And then on top of that, you got coyote tracks stepping in the juvenile Sasquatch tracks. We're in the middle of a swamp. Strike one on skeptics, right? Like they're well, it could be a human. It's well within the human range. Yeah, the human range of size, but not common sense. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, here we are. We're gonna have this conversation. Like, why don't you, all I gotta say is this, right? All you gotta do, Kerry, when you come here, is take your shoes off for 1 hour and follow me.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
And I can tell you right now, you're not doing it.
No.
You're not going to do it for an hour. You're not going to do it for 5 minutes. You're going to go 10 feet and go, you're out of your mind.
Well, the majority of the floor out there is dead palm frond. I mean, that's why it's hard to sneak around through there because it's crunch, 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 you know? And those things will slice you open. Dry, green, I don't care. It's like a damn serrated knife.
We got grass called gator grass. And if you break it off close to the ground, I've punctured my shoe with the tip of it. I've literally had gator grass puncture my shoe when I had my white cockpit boots that you used to make fun of.
Yes.
those are my fishing boots, right? And I'm like, man, it's water out there. I'm just gonna wear my fishing boots. I had a piece of grass. It's like straw. You know, you've been around hay, right? It's like hay. And man, I'm telling you, man, you ain't making it in barefoot. These guys make it in barefoot. Where these tracks are found, where they're finding them, these tracks, is in the middle of the green swamp, right? You are not going to be out there barefoot, let alone having your kids run around barefoot out there. But when you share it in social media, because I wasn't there and I don't know shit about what I'm looking at, you run into, oh, that's obviously a human track. Look at how the toes are together.
That's
it's been wearing shoes. It's been wearing shoes. Yeah, like it's been wearing shoes its whole life in the house. And then when it goes in the swamp, it chooses to be barefoot. That's like
you do. And you know, this is what people don't do is think critically, you know, and critical thinking is just a non-factor here. You think about something that's been walking its entire life through the woods, they probably got a 1-inch thick callus on the bottom of their feet. I mean, look, if you're a married guy like me, you get a callus right here just from your damn wedding ring.
Yeah, man, I got it.
Yeah, you got it.
You got it right there,
that's from your wedding ring, guys. You all know this. You imagine your feet walking around your entire life with no shoes on, how bad that callus is going to be. So just that small part of critical thinking outside of weighing the source, which if you look at the environment that's going on here, that should be your first clue.
Yeah.
You've got so much evidence, and I call it proof. You know,
that's what I call it.
It's proof.